Hola amigos, ¿bien o no? Saludos desde Medellín. Y hoy continuamos con este tema, con cómo mejorar nuestras conversaciones. Un ejemplo con frases muy útil si ustedes en una situación, dice, difícil. Ese es el tema de hoy. So, hello again. Today we're going to follow on from our theme of the last couple of days. And you remember yesterday I was talking about when we're choosing our words, one other thing to think about is what's like the worst case scenario. Think of a really difficult situation. Um, what would you say in that situation? Because that's the one that you really need to practice for, because it may not happen that often, but when it does, chances are you're going to be in a bit of a stressed situation. You might not be at your best. So the more you practiced for that situation, the better it's going to go. Because really, we remember we need to try and stay calm so we've got better control over our voice and we're going to be easier to understand, because clarity is going to be key at this point. So you remember the example I gave, or for me, was traveling through airports. Always you get questions, and often, particularly some of the distances I travel when I'm moving between London and Medellin, it's at the end of a very long flight, sometimes almost like 2 days, particularly if I travel through the USA first. So you're not exactly at your best when you come off the plane, that's what I'm trying to say. So in fact you feel tired and a bit like fatigued or a bit stressed because you're trying to catch that connecting flight, and then you get stopped and asked questions like, really? But if you mentally rehearse a nice way to answer those questions, then the process is a lot smoother, because, to be fair, the people asking you the questions, it's just their job they need to do. They're not really looking for you. It's just that you're one of their 20 people a day they need to talk to. Then ways to think of it. So anyway, let's walk through what we're going to talk about today. The key thing to remember, whatever the situation, some of this I'm going to reference in the sense of airport travel, because that's my most recent experience of this, but you could look at this in any type of difficult conversation you're having when someone, particularly like authority type people, are having conversations with you, or maybe you're just having a conversation with someone who's arguing with you about something. Our idea in this situation is to try and reduce the stress or the apparent like negativity in that situation, and we're trying to seek clarification for what has gone wrong, what's the misunderstanding, why are we not being friendly anymore, what went wrong here, and particularly we're looking for an amicable resolution. So amicable again as in friendly, something that's mutually okay between both of us. We're going to try and resolve this in a friendly way. So the best way to do this really, first of all, with our tone of voice. So this is why the practice, the reading aloud, and particularly practicing these type of phrases for this type of situation is very important. So you can automatically, if you like, go into character in that scene and do this in a nice calm voice. We need to maintain a neutral tone of voice. So we don't want to start shouting or using too dramatic a tone of voice. We need a nice neutral tone of voice, something nice and clear, so we have like a newsreader voice, nice and clear, so the other person can hear it. Not too fast, because again, the other person might not hear everything you say. And also, as we kind of slow the situation down a bit, if we speak in a nice, calm, slow manner, the other person eventually will mirror us and slow themselves down a little bit. This is going to help us effectively take the steam out of the other person, particularly if they're angry, very animated with us. If we remain calm, nice calm tone of voice, nice and clear, then they again hopefully should start to calm down. We're looking to remain diplomatic, so this is not us pointing fingers at the other person and saying it's their fault straight away. this will only escalate the situation. And particularly, we're going to do this in our second language, don't forget. We don't want to start causing extra problems beyond the first problem that has apparently caused this conversation. So remember, be diplomatic, particularly be courteous. We're trying for understanding. We're going to look for some form of cooperation. So we're going to be cooperative with them to hope that they're going to cooperate with us. And we're going to be empathetic. So we're going to listen to them and we're going to empathize with their point of view. Even if we disagree, the point at the beginning is we empathize with their point of view and then look for common ground for us to resolve the problem. So that's why we're seeking clarification of what's gone on, and always remember we're going for an amicable resolution. So one thing we are not, we cannot be confrontational, cannot be obstructive, like, no, I can't do that, no. And particularly we can't be aggressive, because if we go to that point, then we've lost control of that situation, because you don't necessarily have the language fluency to get yourself out of that situation. If this situation escalates and your behavior is misinterpreted as being aggressive, particularly obstructive, and the other person is already upset, it's going to be very, very difficult with your limited language to get out of that problem. So the idea is we head that off by being courteous, diplomatic, understanding, like, well, there can't possibly be a problem. This is the thing you need to keep in mind. The other person, clearly, you can't imagine why there would be a problem. So if you speak to them like they're your best friend who's just having a moment, then it's like, well, of course, I'm sure we can resolve this. Yeah. And notice always we use phrases like, well, sure, we, like you and me, together, amicably can resolve this. I'm sure we can resolve this. So we're always positive, courteous, understanding, diplomatic. This way, there's no comeback on you. No one can say, yeah, but he was shouting, he was aggressive, he was really rude. No, absolutely not. You know, all you're showing is you're being polite, courteous, understanding. So, the easiest phrase to remember in English is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Now, you might not necessarily be feeling sorry, because perhaps you're not even sure why the other person's upset. So, you know, what do you need to say? But it's a very commonly used, and for us, it's actually a key phrase to show some sense of courtesy and the fact that we're trying to be friendly. So, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So whatever it was, I'm sorry, and I'm sure there's no real problem. Yeah? Very useful phrase. If people start talking to you about something that's clearly some kind of thing you've transgressed, you've done something that they don't think you should have done, and you say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realise. I didn't realise. In other words, my action was unconscious. I wasn't trying to do this to upset you, so I'm very sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't realise. This could be for all kinds of things. Maybe you sat in the wrong chair because that was the one that he was just sitting in, and he's come back and now he sat down. Oh, no, I'm so sorry, I didn't realise it was your seat. I'm so sorry, I didn't realise. There you go. I'm sorry, I didn't realise. Maybe you're in the wrong queue. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realise. That's a perfectly nice, polite way, exits you from that conversation. There's nothing else to say. I'm sorry, I didn't realise. I didn't do this on purpose. I'm sorry, I didn't realise. Now, talking about queues, my recent experience of this, about a year back, I was travelling through the US on my way to Colombia. And as often the case, lots of the border police type people who were there like to talk to occasional passengers. I was one of them. I was called out of the queue. They wanted to talk to me about something. So there were two ways I could have handled that. Because often they talk to you in a quite abrupt way. That's just their style of speaking to people. So first thing is, don't be upset by their tone of voice. Okay. Now, notice there are two ways I could have said it. I could have said, oh, I'm sorry, is there a problem? Which actually is very polite, because I've said, I'm sorry. And my tone of voice is not, is there a problem? Which would be aggressive, but it's, is there a problem? I can't imagine Really? There can't be a problem, surely. But notice, if I use in a situation like that, problem is potentially quite a negative word because it's a negative thing. So instead of using that word, what I said was, how can I help? Because if I'm offering to help, I'm being positive because I'm offering to help. So how can I help? That can't be misconstrued as in any sense a negative comment. How can I help? And then we had a conversation. So, other ways these conversations can go. Now remember, we're looking for clarification. We're checking to make sure that we've understood why the other person needs to speak to us so urgently and why they're apparently upset, or at least, need to talk to us in this way. Generally, this could just be a misunderstanding, and maybe you didn't hear them. So think back to the video, perhaps you saw in the link of yesterday's one, where if we're at the airport, something like that, the key thing to remember when we're given questions by people, repeat back the question to check you've understood it, to show them you've understood it. So something like, if I'm at the airport, do you have your boarding pass? Do you have your boarding pass? Now I could just say yes, but the easy way to do it, to show them that I've heard them correctly, because sometimes it's noisy, is to say, my boarding pass? Yes, of course. So I repeat the key word in the question. Do I have my boarding pass? Or my boarding pass? Yes, of course. And then hand them that. Notice this also lets me take control of the conversation for more time. Because they just say, your boarding pass, and I say, you need my boarding pass, of course. So I repeat back the question and I say something else. So I'm taking more of the conversation at my speed, which is nice, relaxed. So now we're slowing this down and we're relaxing it. We're not going rapidly like the other person is. And we're still not being rude. We're just saying, yeah, my boarding pass, yes, of course. And the boarding pass, okay. Perhaps you didn't hear them. Perhaps it really is noisy. This is a chance for you to ask for them politely to repeat what they said. So something like, I'm sorry. And notice we always start with, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Could you repeat that? There we go. Now they have to repeat it. That's a very polite way to ask them, please repeat what you said. Okay. Maybe then it's still not clear. So I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I don't understand. So maybe the way they phrased the question just wasn't clear. It's not a good question. So I'm sorry. I don't understand. So now you've asked for two ways of clarification. They will then hopefully give you a clearer way of what they wanted you to do. Now don't forget, throughout this whole process, we're looking to show understanding of, particularly of them, because often they're just doing a job that's a bit routine and they're bored, and that's why they're aggressive in the way that they speak to you, because I've got to do this all the time and these people nobody listens to me and blah blah blah. Yeah. So if you show understanding and a bit of empathy in the sense that, look, I understand that you have this task to do and it's very repetitive and everyone's bored with you asking them, but I'm not going to be one of those people. I'm going to try and help you as far as I can in this process in a friendly way. This is where we're going to look for an amicable resolution, remember. Yeah? And we're going to be cooperative. We're going to show cooperation. So let's say that I showed them the boarding pass, something like that, and then there's a problem, or something I've done is a problem. Maybe I'm in the wrong queue. That's what happened last time. So you're in the wrong queue. I see. So I'm showing understanding. I see. Then immediately I apologize. I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Because it's my mistake. I didn't do it consciously. I've just come off a 15-hour flight. I'm a bit jet lagged. I'm queuing in the wrong slot. I should have been in the other queue because that's the one for Europeans and I'm in the one for US citizens, and I didn't realize. That's why I got pulled out of the queue. So, I see. I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Now, at this point, the other person might come back with what they want you to do. Like, look, you need a queue over there. Okay? And if that's the case, I can just answer positively, showing my cooperation with, yes, of course, and then move to the next cue. Yes, of course, of course. If they're not offering information, they're just getting excited because you're in the wrong queue, then say, well, I'm sorry, I didn't realise. What do we do now? Because if they haven't offered you a solution, you're asking for one. What do we do now? And notice it's we, because you're asking for their help. So we, you and your new friend, can amicably resolve the situation. What do we do now? Really, we're asking them, how can we resolve this? How can we resolve this? Because this problem now is like, we both stood here, there's no apparent way out of it at the moment. You're just telling me to do this. I'm saying I don't have that piece of paper. How can we resolve this? Then you can ask them more directly, just find out, what's the next stage in this process? If they're not being clear, what should I do next? What should I do next? What should I do next? How should I do that? Because maybe it's like, I need to fill in one of these forms, fill in this form, or send some kind of email to these people. Okay, well, how should I do that? Because here I'm in the airport, how should I do that? Yeah. This is to show them really that their suggestion is perhaps not practical. And again, it's to make sure you don't make mistakes again in the process, because we don't want to cause them more misunderstanding. So through most of this, you can follow on with some kind of, sorry, I don't understand, seek more clarification. What should I do next? What should we do now? How should I do that? Because really we're seeking to resolve this. How do we resolve this? What do we do next? This should bring you some, hopefully, better information, and then you carry on through the process. Remember, yes, of course, is showing your cooperation through different stages in this process. Please show me this, please empty your bag, please move over here. Yes, of course. Nothing's too much trouble. And finally, when it's done, when you've got to the point where they've stamped the pieces of paper or processed you through their process, remember, say thank you. Say thank you, even if they don't look happy, because often they don't, and they're next. So thank you for your understanding, and I'm sorry for the confusion. So notice I apologize again for my confusion, which has caused this person all that stress. Even if I didn't do it consciously, it wasn't my intention to cause them stress. Maybe really they brought it on themselves. But the point is, because we're going to act in a courteous and diplomatic way to smooth this out, so there's no argument coming from our side, we respond with something like that. So thank you for your understanding. I'm sorry for the confusion. That's it. Then we can hopefully go on our way. And notice at no point did any of this that we use, none of these phrases are in any sense confrontational, obstructive, or aggressive. They're all courteous, diplomatic, and seeking some form of cooperative or amicable resolution to whatever problem this other person has imagined. So if you keep that in mind and practice a few of these phrases, clearly the key one is, remember, start them all off with, I'm sorry. Hopefully, these situations won't get out of control. If it's just the case that the other person has just had a bad day and you're person number 200 and something he's had to have this conversation with, and it's just too much, and now he's lost his temper with you, providing you stay calm and respond in a neutral tone with very courteous diplomatic language, hopefully very quickly in this process, he'll recognize his mistake, and you should notice a change in his behavior, which might even gain you an apology. But see how you go. So there we go. These are some nice phrases to try if you're in one of these difficult situations. Remember, don't panic, stay nice and calm. Remember, you're seeking an amicable resolution to this problem. And hopefully, This will get you out of that with a lot less stress. So for now, from Medellin, it's Cheerio.